And the doctor said that I was probably just overweight. I was probably just constipated and I should go home. But I kept getting this nudge, no, don't leave until you get the script for an ultrasound. So they reluctantly gave me one. They would not tell me the results, but they immediately rushed me in for an emergency MRI.
Intergalactic beings of multi-dimensional realities. Welcome to Channeling.
Ashley, it is so wonderful to invite you into my podcast. Welcome to Channeling. The things that I've heard about you, the things that I felt from you have been amazing and deep. And so I'm excited to welcome you. Welcome to Channeling, Ashley.
Thank you for having me, Gwen. I appreciate it.
I'm so excited for you to be here. Now, I'm going to introduce a little bit about you to everyone in the audience, but then, of course, I want you to go into more depth and more detail. But something beautiful about Ashley is, well, I call it beautiful because of the outcome, and also we can feel the beauty in the process of when we overcome things that are really, really hard, and we get to let go of so many layers of a paradigm and enter into a new world. But with Ashley, something really unique is really you've overcome things that often have debilitated many people in their lives. Huge infections, stuff to do with your spine, things that would put a lot of people under, and you and your determination have been able to heal yourself in huge ways. And part of this, I think, came from you saying that you really were born open and aware of a lot of what you are and what we're here doing and what this place is, that we call Earth, and that we're living our lives as people. So I wanted to open up to you and ask, what were some of the significant things that helped you in really having that determination in your healing process? What is it that you were so aware of and awake of, even as a young child?
Well, when I was little, I guess my first memory, to be honest, was before I was born. So I didn't know it at the time, but my mother was 6 months pregnant with me during the memory that I had. But again, I didn't know it at the time. I just recall the events and the circumstances, like literally everything that happened that day in extreme detail. And in fact, in my mind now, 46 years later, it still feels like it was yesterday. And so I was sort of like the in-between for me. Like I wasn't born yet, but I was also not on the other side. I was hanging out with my sister while we were next to Mom's collapsed body. She had a diabetic coma at some point and had collapsed between a chair and an ottoman. And my memory of it is my sister and I were playing Lincoln Logs and colored blocks and putting them around Mom's body, waiting for my dad to come home. And I had described everything she watched that day, every one of her soap operas, what she wore, all the things that she had done, like rolling her hair in curlers and you name it, leading up to, the whole event of her collapsing. And I found out later that my sister had not been fed or changed in 7 hours, and she was happy and giggly and smiley and playing next to Mom's body with, again, these blocks and Lincoln Logs. Mm-hmm. And that's when I asked, where was I? Like, nobody's talking about me. And they said that my mom was 6 months pregnant and had fallen directly on her pregnant belly.
Wow.
So that's where she had stayed for I don't know how many hours. And I just sort of popped out, and my little soul is like playing with my sister at that level. You know what I mean? Like small childlike.
Hmm.
Um, but after that, I remember being weighed as a baby, like being brought home from the hospital the first time. I remember standing on the edge of my crib and watching what I called the gray people or shadow beings walking around the room.
Mm.
It had premonitions that would prevent accidents and death for my mother.
See, this is what's really cool. Another cool part of your story is these premonitions and these things that really have saved lives. Saved
Yeah,
lives.
yeah, and
And
so yeah, that premonition part was the first part of my discovery of something lethal in my body.
wow. Okay. Tell more.
Okay.
I'm feeling something magical unfold here.
So I started my training in shamanic healing in 2004, and early was it 2004? Yeah, I started my shamanic training in 2004, but in November 2005, shortly after graduating from massage school, I had a surgery to remove some cysts from my right ovary.
Mm.
But afterwards, I just didn't feel right. Like I wasn't having like necessarily significant pain, but I just felt weird, and I couldn't put my finger on it until one day I just had the intuition or premonition to touch my abdomen, and I felt a weird lump on the left side, which is the opposite of where they had removed the ovarian cysts.
Hmm.
And so I put my hand down there, and my guide said, "Look around your house for something that you left behind." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" They said, "You bought something recently that will tell you what is wrong." And I looked all throughout my house for any like symbols that would give me a clue. And somehow, for some reason, on my altar, I had purchased a figurine of a pregnant woman, a pregnant angel, and put a wooden skull next to it.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so my guide said I needed to go back to the surgeon because they had left something inside of me that if it continued to stay there, I would die.
Wow.
And so I called the doctor's office. They made me wait like 2 months to actually get in to see anybody. And so in that timing, whatever that small lump was, it started to feel really big,
Yeah.
like a grapefruit. And the doctor said that I was probably just overweight. I was probably just constipated and I should go home. But I kept getting this nudge, no, don't leave until you get the script for an ultrasound. So they reluctantly gave me one. They would not tell me the results, but they immediately rushed me in for an emergency MRI. And when I talked to the doctor, because she was trying to give me some information about it, she says, "I don't understand how it could be so big." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "It grew too fast in the amount of time from your last surgery to now." I said, "What did?" And she's like, "Well, we won't know until we go in there, but I don't know how I missed it." And I said, "Missed what?" And so I didn't like her wording. And so my guide said, "Go find somebody else." And
Wow.
so in the meantime, I had actually asked for my records, and the whoever was divinely led to hand me the actual films to prove what was inside of my body. I walked out with those films and I never gave them back because they were proof that they knew what was inside,
Wow.
because there was a radioactive marker attached to the thing that they left, and it was very obvious of what it was, but they told me they had no idea. And so I got the bad feeling that had I gone back to the original surgeon, she would have lied about what she actually found. And
Yeah.
so the other surgeon went in, found two grapefruit sized masses, one that had a large wad of gauze on the inside, and it had adhered to all of my organs, and then the organs had stuck to my abdominal wall. So they had to remove all of that, all of the infection that had infected literally everything inside me. They removed the abscesses, my left ovary, surgically separated all of my organs. And then 8 months after that, I had another bad feeling that something still wasn't right. And I was having physical pain and symptoms. But again, the doctors were trying to blow me off. And I said, no, I need somebody to go back in and fix this. And so I ended up losing my entire reproductive system because the suture material from the first 2 surgeries never dissolved. And so all my organs fused together again and was causing constant bleeding, like a constant menstrual cycle, which they told me was, not fatal. I said, pain and bleeding is not fatal. You can learn to live with it. And I was just like, what? So they do. They remove the whole reproductive system, surgically separate all of my organs again. And then 8 months after that, I collapsed in the shower with chest pain and shortness of breath. And the doctors were very reluctant to say anything that was going on. They just kept sending me from one person to the next. And I just had a really bad feeling that the infection had spread to my heart. And the doctors actually were telling me that my test results were normal, that I was suffering from a mental illness, or I was a typical woman that had symptoms with no basis in reality, and I just needed to learn to relax.
Yeah.
My guides were like, no, you need to go order those records and see what they actually say. And so I found that I had a rare autoimmune disease that was eating through my arteries and my aorta, and that I had 4 hernias, a collapsing intestine, a twisted bowel, paralysis of my gut, and several other things. But they were all telling me it was all in my head.
Wow. Oh.
And so
way to try to brainwash someone.
Yeah, I mean, one guy said, pain is psychological, and just because you think you're having chest pain and shortness of breath, it's just your mind telling you that you're unhappy. I suggest you go to a psychiatrist for some meds.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I actually came back with the test results in hand, they just stared at me with a weird look on their face and said, sorry, we can't help you. And they just ignored me and walked out the door. But this was not just one person. This was 40 doctors in 3 states that were refusing me care because I was in the midst of a medical lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
And so my guides, I started to have seizures every day. I started to have strokes. I had up to 16 strokes. At one point, I lost the ability to eat solid food for 3 years. And then I lost my memory for about 2.5 years. I couldn't read or do math, and I didn't recognize my own face in the mirror or
Mm-hmm.
other people's faces. And it wasn't everybody. I could still remember my parents for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
but clients and coworkers, I had it damaged a part of my brain that was all about facial recognition.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so my guides were telling me, what to do to turn off the disease, because usually people will die within 5 years. They usually put you on chemotherapy and prednisone until you die. And if they're able to catch it in time, they may be able to do some bypass surgery. But they say you're going to be on chemo and prednisone for the rest of your life, like low-dose chemo pills. And my guide's like, no, don't do it. He told me what to eat and not eat, like take out dairy and gluten and certain inflammatory things,
Mm-hmm.
and start consuming things like turmeric for inflammation, or oregano and rosemary to kill off any bacteria or fungus growing in my body. So I was able to turn all of that off myself. I stopped the seizures. I haven't had strokes in years. My organs rearranged themselves, so I no longer have hernias. And
wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I had even lost 90% of the blood to my left arm, at least through this one particular artery, and most of it to my legs. So I woke up every morning with no circulation in my arms and legs. I had to flop around to just, like they were dead weights.
Yeah.
And I asked my guide, I was like, what do I do? And first of all, he was the first one to point out that I was dying. And then I needed to actually create like a new soul contract, something that was worth living for.
Mm.
And I sort of made a deal. I was like, I will help as many people as I can for as long as I can if you save my life. And he told me to call, he told me to go to California to talk to a doctor. And I said, I don't know any doctors in California. And he says, but you know somebody who does. And he flashed the face of a doctor that I used to work with in the government office 6 years before. Like I literally had not seen or talked to this man in 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him where I should go. And I went to, he told me to go to Stanford. And on the plane ride there, I looked out the window as the sun was coming up over the horizon. And I said, will they be able to help me? And these little lakes light up in the distance or lit up in the distance. And they said they will have a partial answer, but they won't be able to help you. And I said, well, who will? And this massive lake in the distance lit up like a giant copper penny. And he said, you will have to travel east to find the surgeon that will help you. But don't worry, the people in California know who. So I go to California. The doctor I meet said, your situation is so complicated. We suggest that you fly east to Rochester, Minnesota, to the Mayo Clinic. And those people knew within 24 hours what these other people refused to acknowledge for 3 years.
Yeah.
So this guide, I mean, they would breathe for me in my chest because it was difficult for me to walk up the stairs.
Wow.
And sometimes I even had strokes or seizures on the freeway.
Wow. And you're here today. And
yeah.
you're here today, right? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I'm going to take a sip of my tea.
So the doctor that did the surgery, they put synthetic tubes in my chest to give me the blood to both my legs, my left arm, and my brain. And they did a surgery that none of the other doctors would have done because it's sort of like they're putting ski suit material in a person. It's like literally waterproof fabric that they sewed inside my chest to replace my aortic arch and the artery to my left arm, versus a doctor that would have taken a vein from my leg to put in my chest and required some sort of like immunosuppressive therapy for the rest of my life. I don't have to take any meds or do any of those things.
Wow. This is amazing. I'm just thinking about how the extreme I'm going to try this again. I'm thinking about just the extremity of how you got to test your guides and really put absolute faith in them and say, yeah, I'm rewriting a contract with you and this is real. Like there's no futzing around. Like this gets to happen. I mean, my life is on the line here and we get to do something different now. And I think, I mean, for a lot of people who enter in and have guides, a lot of the time, I think some people can have this idea of, I'm going to connect with my guides and they'll just tell me how to do and be or whatever. But this is you claiming your life and you saying, yo, guides, we need to work with me now. You know, this isn't some wimpy kind of a person just wanting to take orders. This is you stepping into your power. And I think this is a key important matter for people who enter into channeling or who start connecting to their guides. Sometimes we look at them and they're like, oh, well, they don't have bodies, so they must be better than us. Or, you know, I need to take orders from you. But actually looking into the relationship and knowing that really our connection with them, we get to claim for our own benefit, not necessarily the ego saying, nah, I'm going to do whatever I want, but a soul, a deep claiming for our own good and for our own purpose. And that's what I'm getting when I'm hearing you. It's like, wow, this connection that started at such an early age it developed in such a way that you at that time, you could reach out, you could say this to your guides, right?
Yeah, well, one of the things that's different is like everybody's got guides, but not all guides are equal.
Yeah.
And in my training, they said, ask for a spirit teacher,
Mm.
not just a guide that will love you and support you and tap you on the shoulder, maybe give you some angel numbers or something that you can't use or interpret, but literally a spirit teacher that is fully transcended that will teach me something that I want to learn. And so
Mm.
I asked him to teach me medical mediumship and quantum healing, not only for myself, but for other people, because he was not always there. Like I started my training in 2004, and it wasn't until I was like in the dying process, basically, where I was just like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I desperately need somebody to help me.
Mm-hmm.
And when he showed up, there were other guides that were helping me along the way, but when he showed up, when grandfather showed up, man, it was a different ball game. But he sort of looked at me like, oof, like, because I was painfully insecure at the time. I did not have the confidence to do this work. And one of the first messages he gave me was that I had to get over the selfishness of my self-consciousness, because I was so afraid of looking stupid or failing that I limited who I would help. Even in my courses, in my training, I picked the person that I was the least gifted to
Wow.
practice with, because I was so intimidated. I was so afraid of performance anxiety that I just was like, no. And so grandfather was very firm with me, and even telling me I had to start public speaking,
Mm-hmm.
or if I was super happy that I got something right, he's like, oh, it's about you again. I'm like,
Yeah.
so yeah. So I mean, and they all do different things. It's like they all have different gifts, different skills, different talents. Like some are protectors, some
Mm-hmm.
are healers, some are retrievers, some speak, some don't. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so one of the things that my Lakota mentor taught me was relationship. That was
Mm-hmm.
the one thing that no other teacher that I've ever had ever did, was teach me about a relationship and reverence.
Yeah.
And going, this is, if you have that deep relationship with them, you're never alone. And it's not about you trying to manipulate them or do spell casting or do something to get whatever it is you want, like $10 million or, the lotto numbers and all this type of stuff. It really is like, what is for the highest good? And
Yeah.
there are lower beings that will do things with you, but there's a price.
Yeah. I love what you're saying, because I've been exposed to Lakota teaching and done sweat lodge and other of their practices, and that's one of the big things that I have taken from them, is that relation and how we all are in relation with each other. Um, our identity may want to separate that and believe that we're separate, but we're all in a relationship together, and when we rise together. Together we do it. Together we're walking the road, and like you talking to your guide and saying, yeah, I get to rewrite a soul contract. A part of that is honoring that we're in it together, because that soul contract isn't just you, it's all of the people around you, and you stepping even deeper into your mission, and you being able to be brave, and you being able to let go of that singular identity that's saying it's all about me, and I want to hold on to my fear, and I want to hold on to these patterns that have made me feel comfortable, right, in the past. But now that deeper commitment is helping kind of unpeel that onion, so to speak, is my guess as to how I would explain it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, and actually part of this, the part that I have not mentioned is that, despite the fact that the doctors played the role that they did,
Mm-hmm.
I set this in motion. When I was 17, I was so distraught about childhood abuse and things that I went through. I left home at 17, about a month after I turned 17, and
Mm-hmm.
went to college, and I made a vow that would end up playing out for the next 20 years. And that vow was about wanting to die, not wanting to be here. and that I would denounce certain parts of my life, certain parts of myself, because I didn't think that I was worthy.
Wow.
And so I had cursed myself. And the number of people involved that played a role in this, I can blame them and point fingers, but it started with me.
Yeah.
And so that was, if I had kept on that trajectory, I would have died, just like I asked for.
Yeah.
And I reinforced that, shortly, like 5 years after that. Like, so there's multiple layers to me wishing my life away. And that's what I see with a lot of my clients. They will make these vows or these declarations that are soul contracts. They are curses, they are spells. And when we say negative things to ourselves or about somebody else, or about ourselves to somebody else, we are reinforcing something. And so we wonder why all these bad things keep happening. Like, what is our role that we're playing in this?
Yeah.
So there
I
are,
love that.
go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I love what you're saying. And I mean, this is a really deep, deep look at what roles we play with each other, because, and this is what my guides explained to me, that we are living in an experience where those deep things that we're trying to prove or aren't willing to let go of and bring into the light and offer it in love and open to, it cannot help but play out the program until we say we're done. It cannot help but keep on reflecting and refracting and inviting in that energy into your life and bringing it to pass. It cannot help but continue to build that up. And before we started chatting, there were two things that came to my mind, which I thought was interesting. And they're questions that have been really key for me in my life to ask, to find the depth of what's really happening. Is number one, what am I trying to prove? What am I trying to prove here? Like, just keep on going deeper and deeper and deeper on that. And then number two, what am I trying to run away from? Right? What am I afraid to see right now? Right? And both of them can be huge components in kind of unlocking the hidden contracts, like you say, the hidden beliefs that we're running that don't make sense in our lives. And we're like, why is this occurring? Why are people showing up in this way with me all of the time? And I've had my patterns. I've had it happen. I mean, I'm in the middle of unraveling some awesome things surrounding, masculine and feminine relationships. And it's gold. It's beautiful. It's a blessing. And it's a deep learning that I feel like this is something that my intelligence gets to know and broadcast to the universe, like what I'm actually coming to understand in this experience. So, I mean, we can look at it as like, these can be our greatest pains, but they can also be our greatest gold, our greatest alchemy when we flip the switch and invite in light. And when we flip the switch and we invite in a new path or a new statement of what we're going to be walking in our lives. That's me on my little stand. Boom.
Oh no, as you're speaking, it made me think of like something that's been new for me, because up until 2 years ago, I probably spiritualized everything. And now I look at what's the ordinary reality pattern and what's the non-ordinary reality pattern. Because oftentimes people, like I've had 110 people in the last year trying to overcome narcissistic abuse. And they all told me that they thought they met their soulmate, their twin flame, past life lover. I said, that sounds good on paper, but you can't prove it. But what I can tell you is you have a history of trauma or abuse, and that you picked somebody that matched your pattern. And you were probably, these people are often empaths. They learn to people please, to stay emotionally safe, to ignore red flags because they think it's their job to make that person happy. And they get their own form of validation when that person breadcrumbs them. And they think that love bombing stage, which is usually at the beginning, means that they're soulmates and that they're their other half. That person's just dosing them with dopamine and serotonin with all that love, and then they go into the devalue and discard stage. And so this is not a spiritual problem. This is an ordinary reality pattern that unless a person recognizes the role they play in it, it will repeat.
Yeah.
And so the thing that I started to ask myself 2 years ago was like, let's take spirituality out of the picture for just a moment. Show me what truth frequency looks like or feels like. Truth frequency. And they showed me like a pillar of light, or just a pillar in general, buried into the core of the earth, coming up all the way through me. And if I held on to it in the middle of a tornado or hurricane, I would be unshakable, unbreakable, unmovable. And that what the storm was not a literal storm. It was other people's opinions. It was their needs, their desires, their manipulation, all these different things, all these different energies. How could I stay in my center, in my core, without being moved? And so it's a place of absolute, utter neutrality, like equanimity, non-reaction, where you're not trying to avoid something or grasp something. And so a lot of times when people are in these toxic situations, they are having euphoric recall. They are remembering when this person is amazing, but they're not looking at what's actually in front of them. Because I would ask these people, what, they would say to me, I know the real them. I'm like, oh yeah, what is that? And they would give me this airy-fairy answer of how perfect they are. And I said, what percentage of the time are they actually that way? And they would say maybe 10, 20% of the time. And I said, what makes you think the other 80 to 90% is not the real them? And so oftentimes people are really admiring the potential rather than what's really in front of them. Or in other cases, again, they're so swayed by other people's emotions or their thoughts or their beliefs. And so I just started coming into this place of neutrality. And from there, I asked them, what was my role in every bad situation in my life? What was my role with money? What was my role with these people? And they showed where I made bad decisions. They showed where I was the people pleaser, or where I overlooked things, or my self-esteem was so bad, or whatever it was that made certain things happen, whether it be toxic love relationships or money issues or whatever. I was willing to see my role without any guilt or shame or fear. Just absolutely throw down the rap sheet and let me know. Because only when a person is willing to see the truth will it be revealed. Because most people only want to hear what they want to hear.
Yeah.
And that includes from their guides.
Yeah. And that's really a beautiful way. I love how you've talked about that neutral space. And my guides talk about that too. In fact, it's one of the key practices in one of the books, the playbooks that I've written, is the practice of connection and really knowing what that space or what that connection is, that column, that of light, that pillar of light. It's exactly that. Is so cool to hear another practitioner. I promise you folks, we didn't know this before we started talking, and this is how it works. It's really beautiful. I love it when this happens because these synergies and these connections, it's like truth is truth. Dang it, I mean, there's intelligence that's being shared, and sometimes it's shared with you or me, and I don't realize how impactful, how transformative it can be. But it's just like I get to trust and practice and see, and apply. And when I do, then things start unfolding. They start unraveling. I start seeing, wow, this is my stability. This is my core. This is what I can claim. And really being in that pillar of light, what I found is that the energy and the movement of it actually is so transformative. Anything that enters that's a thought that's just like, uggy, whatever, it just gets, it just gets shot out. It's, there's, nothing's going to get you there. It's really beautiful to feel that when you really own that, that pillar. And there's something about that really, really felt, okay, there's something else that I felt it. Because when I imagine with it, I imagine it around me, but it's also it's my internal. And so there's this there's this resonance that occurs of the back and forth, because one is not without the other. There's neither one without the other, but we are in a space of reflection and refractory here. We're being projected, and so we get to do this. We get to do the back and forth and this confirmation between the two, knowing this is my center, this is my outer world. Both of them are here together. And that's exciting for me to feel. When I feel that, that's when everything's just like really lit and really powerful. When I can feel both of those in, it's like they sing to each other in a way. It's really, really beautiful. I can feel that.
Yeah, and neutrality. I mean, if you think about it, like the Buddhists talk about equanimity, non-reaction. But
Yes.
even in Egyptian times, they have like the goddess Mot, like the little cat-headed figure that's weighing a heart against a feather. If your heart is neutral or better, you're not accruing karma. But a lot of times people, they're so stuck on something being a specific way that they are actually limiting the actual truth. Especially if they only want Care Bears and rainbows. That was one of the things I learned in my mediumship class. There'd be 30 of us there, and nobody wanted to sit anywhere near me because I would say the opposite of everybody else. They'd be channeling Hecate or some like deep, incredibly powerful being that does not talk in these filtered ways. And so I would be bringing in something that sounded almost the opposite, but it wasn't. It was just delivered a little more like, hey, have some extreme ownership of your life. This is not just the universe doing this to you. This is not just the dark side doing this to you. This is you doing this to you.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I will have clients come to me that have seen a ton of psychics who have told them that the person that is hurting them, they have a soul contract with, or that, again, their soulmate, twin flame, past life lover, something. And I said, no, I don't get that feeling at all. I get that it is this particular pattern that you're playing out. And they say, thank you for being the first person to tell me that I don't have to keep doing this because this is my soulmate, my twin flame soul contract. I've gotten to the point over the last 2 years where I've started to recognize that there is a culture to spiritualize toxicity to make us feel better about it or to give meaning to it.
Yeah.
And people are ignoring what's actually happening. And so they think that the power is outside of them to change it rather than recognizing we ourselves are causing it.
I think it's a beautiful thing you're talking about, because it's very important as a foundation, I think, to recognize the, just like you talked about Buddhism, the tendency for humans to try to grasp onto something or to give power away, like other is making someone do it, to remove that. And so those tendencies are important to acknowledge when we're doing things, because honoring a soul contract can either be liberating or it can be caging, because you feel like you're bound to it, rather than you recognizing, I created this and I get to decide what this is about and the highest good that's going to come from it. And it may be me saying, F you, thank you for everything that you've done. I am seeing beyond this and I'm walking in a new way. I mean, it may be as simple as that if that's what you're ready to do. So I think it's super important that people recognize, and that's one key thing that I feel was so great with my Buddhist training, was feeling into that and seeing the tendency of grasping, seeing the tendency of the mind to try to come up with answers to things, to create meaning when not necessarily the meaning is there, that we're the ones creating that meaning. We're the ones deciding what it is, and we get to be very careful and honor the kinds of meaning that we're deciding to invest in. And we are the ones that can shift those if we desire. We can shift those in any way we desire. And so I love that you brought that up, because, and I wanted to bring up, you know, I have been married a long time ago, and a lot of people would typically look into it and say, oh, that was a narcissistic situation. He was a narcissist and I was the innocent, oh, you know, whatever, feather one. But even in the middle of our relationship, even in the middle of our marriage, I started to see that I was playing into him because I wanted to feel special too.
I did the same thing.
I wanted to feel special too. And he was feeding, in some ways, he was feeding that specialness. And of course, when that waned and I started saying, oh God, maybe I don't know what love is right now, and I was investing in something that wasn't really that, did it all just kind of fall out from under me. And I mean, thank God it did, because that was me entering into a new world of myself. But at the same time, it was, you know, it took me coming to a very hard space for me to admit it and let my psyche let go of that old story. I had to go to a very hard place in myself in order to do that. So I think part of the reason why I tell that to people is blessings to everyone on your journey, by the way, blessings to everyone on their journey. And even in these surprising places where you may see, oh my God, I don't know what love is, there's also a part of you that does know what love is. And you just get to step into that new place, that place that you were blocking off from yourself. And that's what we're doing. We're just learning how to do things like that for ourselves, for the love of ourselves, for the love of humanity, for the love of all of us, rather than being victims, rather than being trapped in a story of being trapped, that we can see, oh, this is a story, and I get to learn how I get to free myself from it, because that's the power.
Well, oftentimes too, these people that play these roles in our lives, like I had the same situation, married young and married somebody who was not fab. And we will often want to be the one that changes them. That's something that I have found, like, being an empath is not necessarily a spiritual gift. It means you have a history of trauma and you've learned to become super sensitive, not you, but a person has learned to become super sensitive to their environment. And then they try to control and manipulate their environment through being nice. And nice is different than being kind, because there is an expectation that this person will suddenly become what they want them to be for themselves to be happy, but it really isn't in alignment with the other individual. And so if we stop trying to manipulate the situation and become the rescuer, the savior that is then significant and the hero that transforms that toxic person, like there's this whole thing behind it, like this whole mystique that people will fall into, this pattern of trying to be the one that breaks that other person's pattern, breaks the mold, because we're so amazing and special. But what we are doing is we're trying to replay a pattern with a different ending from our own childhood. We're trying to we will meet these people that represent somebody from our past. And that's what I think about, like all those doctors or all the different relationships that I had up to a certain point. They were just different faces for one archetype. And I kept playing the same role over and over again. The anger, the grief, trying to prove myself, the significance and whatever. And when I just walked away and did my own thing, that pattern fell apart. And I was no longer sick. I was no longer dying. I was no longer rehearsing the role that I'd been playing over and over and over again, unconscious and unaware, because they can't play their roles if we don't play ours. If we have healthy boundaries, we don't attract narcissists. If we say no to people, you know what I mean?
And not only that, the same situation is seen in a completely new manner. because you're
Oh,
inviting in a different roles to be played out.
when I started saying no to people, like when I started really anchoring in that truth frequency, I started to realize how many of my relationships, friendships, work relationships, whatever, were trauma bonds.
Yeah.
And the things that were attracted, these things that were quote unquote soulmates, were mind mates. They
Mm.
were people that reflected all of my unresolved trauma, all of my limiting beliefs. And when I started to change everything from neutral to better, don't you know that I cleared a path in my life? These people started dropping out left, right, and center. And I was like, suddenly the world became very small, very, very limited for a little while until it opened up a totally new path that had nothing to do with my past. Because I started, when you were in neutral, you are in a place of absolute acceptance and presence. There is no past, there is no future. You are here. You start to create a reset. And when you are totally neutral, you will see your past differently. You will start having a life review without the emotion. And the things that you thought were true reality, your mind's going to go,
Well, that happens to me a lot, and it's still happening. It just keeps on going and going and going. And so I think a part of me is, a part of me gets to say, hey, just get used to dying and being reborn all the time. But we do that with our every breath, when we recognize and see that really that is we die and we are reborn at every moment. It's a choice. There's choice at every moment. Things become powerful and hard to deny. And even though I want to run and hide sometimes, at least a part of me does sometimes.
I'm getting something of here. They wanted me to, they've reminded me of something crucial in the last 2 years that was part of this death and rebirth cycle, is that I'd made my life about shamanism for like 18 to 20 years now. Yeah. And that's all about spirit guides and following their directions. And after I had a breakup a couple of years ago, it was so traumatic for me, my guide stepped out. I'd had a complete mind meld as if I was sharing a body with other beings. You know what I mean? Like my mindset for years.
Yeah.
And I couldn't hear them. And there was a period of time there where I just really had to build myself up again. And I realized how weak I was. I had grown spiritually and as a business person, but I had relied so heavily on them. I didn't realize that I had not grown at all.
Wow. Yeah.
Mentally, emotionally, or what have you, because I was hiding behind the spirituality. And so when they were no longer there, they're like, look at you, look how weak you are in your own soul. And you need to learn to think differently, speak differently, act differently, make different choices so that you don't keep repeating these things. Wow. So it wasn't just my clients. I could see very clearly for them, but I had to turn around and see it for me. I had to really look at myself. And so while people are super like trying to get in touch with their guides, if they don't have a healthy relationship with themselves and their higher version of self, which is still in there, it's not out there, it's not in the sky somewhere, it is in here. Unless they build a healthy relationship with that, they can have all the guides they want. They will still have the same Mooney event, circumstances, and relationships over and over again. That's why there's a lot of toxic quote unquote healers out there, or people like that, because they don't see themselves.
Yeah. Oh, I want to say ditto. There's always shadows that come up, and I know I want to be compassionate because we're all learning to walk in a way together. But it is hard to see some people, who they enter in and they don't go to the depths that really is the gold, that really is the gold. It's more like a little play outside rather than, wow, I'm really owning the depths of what I am. This is me owning my choice. This is me owning that this is a creative experience that we're in, and really becoming solid and knowing and saying too, I have some weak points that I don't see, even though I can see weak points in others, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that that's really key, is that, well, you know what? It inevitably, what we create is gonna, it happens in our world around us, and we start seeing it, you know, whether it's people start not wanting to hang out with us, or you know, they say our medicine is a little too toxic, or whatever it is, you know, they say they're not feeling safe, you know, all of it gives us an opportunity to look back into ourselves and say, oh, okay, I get to be with something here that maybe I was deflecting, and I thought, or maybe I've been clinging on to as a righteous thing that I get to prove. Ha ha. Bringing up the question again.
Well, that's the thing, is like, that's one of the things I've had to ask myself, like, what are my beliefs about love? Because when we talk about soul contracts with people, it's not with the individual themselves. Like, especially if it's a toxic person, even though somebody will say that's your past life lover, you have a soul contract. No, no, no. The soul contract is what belief do you have about love? Or what belief do you have about health? Because every time you create a belief, you're creating a page in that book. And you will attract the people that are part of that.
Yes.
And so it isn't the contract with the individual, it's the contract you made with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And or with that topic. And so when I'm working with people, or even with myself, I'm like, where am I now? Like, what areas are not working? What do I want to manifest or create? And what do I have to start and stop doing in both ordinary and non-ordinary reality to match this?
Oh, I think that's such a great statement. I love how visually you know, showed your hands and this, you know, path, because in fact, I think I'll write that down and draw it out for myself, because it gives a visual and a way of ownership of different things that are happening. Because sometimes I just get in the road, I'm going, I'm doing, and it's like being able to stand back and see points where I'm like, oh, is this really in full alignment? What can I tweak here so that, you know, maybe there's a subtle something that's not quite right in this belief, you know, whatever it is, or this action, because this action is confirming this belief right here. Or so I love that. I think I'll be playing with that tonight.
Do it for every category.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out where you are in health, in love, in money, in career, in purpose, all the different areas that you can think of, you know, that you want to address. Go, where am I currently, and where do I want to be? Because what you're doing is you're plugging an address into a GPS device, basically, or turning the dial on a TV or a radio station to get a particular channel. And you have to figure out what you have to start or stop doing in order to be in alignment with that. It may be beliefs. It may be things that you say to yourself and others, because people have unconscious speech patterns about, oh, this always happens, or the world's going to hell, or all these different things that they say. They're spells.
Yeah.
You know, in some cases, we have to stop hanging out with these people and start making new connections with other people, because the power of proximity is so massive.
Mm-hmm.
Or around people that are keeping you in a lower vibration, you need to change who you're around.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If your mental diet, the things you listen to or you watch or you read in terms of news or social media are keeping you in a box, stop doing it. And then what do you have to start doing that's in alignment with that thing?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be an athlete, be around athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Do athletic things. Rehearse athletic activities in your mind's eye.
Mm-hmm.
Because they say that if you are practicing free throws every day, you will improve like 25%. But if you are just visualizing it over and over again, mentally rehearsing it and feeling the win, then you will improve 24%.
Mm-hmm.
And most people are rehearsing the opposite of what they want. They're rehearsing the negative and worst case scenarios and wondering why it shows up that way. It's because they're not disciplining or directing their speech, their thoughts, or habits to actually match the person they want to become, because this is not just the universe hands this to you. This is an identity shift.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have the same old stories and the same old belief systems and become somebody else.
Yeah. I'm remembering us talking about this quantum leap stuff, but I just thought of a perfect example for me today, and I can embarrass myself because I choose to, if I desire. But I was thinking about a relationship, and there's just this thought of, well, maybe us being in this relationship isn't good for each other. Oh, I was feeling the static of old patterns of the insecurity and ideas that play out. And then listening to you, what I literally can do is I can literally imagine myself in this interaction with this person and feel the nurturance, the quality of the goodness of the relationship, and how that can even expand even further in my relating to them. So I can switch those two thoughts with each other and say, oh, hi, I see you pattern. And I'm like, oh, but you know what, really what I'm choosing is, what I'm creating is real partnerships of nurturance, of support. And I'm just sitting here imagining that and allowing myself to see, even to see, when I touch that person, I can feel the nurturance that's happening. And I don't have to let this pattern rewrite that in any way, shape, or form, because I think old patterns, we can allow them to rewrite things that are positive that we've been experiencing.
That's what, like Neville Goddard and some of the others, they call it the pruning shears of revision. Now people will think that you're just lying to yourself, but you can inject an entirely different past.
Yeah.
You can envision your parent was the most amazing person ever and see him in the highest light. You can go back in time and everything was perfect. These things never happened. And so I go back into my past and I inject safety. I inject this was amazing, excitement, what have you. And some of my greatest abusers, including my mother, I just see her as happy. I just see her as amazing and just deep love for her, because I have chosen to rewrite my past with her.
Yeah.
And two, another thing is if you are dealing with somebody, have the courage to be disliked.
Yeah.
Have the courage to let it fall apart, let them walk away, let them hate you, because or be willing to see what's actually there. So many people are trying to manipulate the situation, the friendship or the love relationship, into being what they want it to be, because they don't want to keep looking, or they don't want to keep doing something. But if you're willing to see the truth of what is actually the true nature of the relationship, you'll see it and be able to respond differently. But I've actually put a pillar of neutrality between me and somebody else, and went multiple times. And I've seen that person in such a light, somebody I'd known for years, and I suddenly wanted nothing to do with them overnight, immediately. Friends. And then relationships stopped on a dime, not just from my end, their end.
Yeah.
Because I was no longer attracted to or attracting the same time of relationships that were usually trauma bonds. Somebody who matched my darkness.
Interesting.
Or matched my wounds, I guess it would be the more correct answer. Because a lot of times they say, oh, these people see the real me. No, they just don't.
They see the trauma. Yeah. I think that's really beautiful, once again, to bring it back, and because my guys always bring it back to the neutrality too. Because sure, we can play games in our minds, trying to reprogram whatever we want in whatever way we desire, in a way. But there comes a point of real honesty, and the power comes in the honesty and the neutrality, and simply being able to, if we can look something in the eye, and originally if we see it, maybe there's judgment, maybe there's fear, maybe there's that's evil, maybe there's whatever involved in it. If we can really look it in the eye and invite it into the whole, into the wholeness of what role is played, of what we thought we had to be, of whatever it was, if we can allow that truth to come through, and the recognition of, sure, we can feel like we're separate and alone and we can cling to things, but we all are oneness. We all are in oneness, and we can claim that too. Then really these things become, they don't have the power to manipulate us in our action. We don't have to run around and scurry in fences and try to manipulate everything to be okay, right?
Yeah.
Like, the truth is, it is okay in a way, and it's horrible in a way, and it's beautiful in a way, and it's all of those things in a way.
Well, also too, if we stop trying to rush in and fix and save things, we might actually see what's really there. And if the other person is willing to do their work, and if they're not, maybe they're not in alignment with who we are, who we're becoming. Because oftentimes we try to help somebody because it's about how we feel about the situation.
Yeah.
Like we don't want to feel bad. Like the empaths, of the world, they feel, sorry for people, or they feel super triggered. And so this is an opportunity to not necessarily move in to fix, save, or rescue somebody, because you end up with unreciprocal relationships or toxic stuff going on. And so when you just come into a place of the neutral observer and see what the other person's willing to do about their situation, you might not even be in the same relationships or have the same problems anymore if you start having different boundaries. Stop rushing into change. Just literally go, what's for the highest good here? Am I supposed to do anything?
Yeah.
And two, if somebody comes to you, if people are healers or they're psychic readers or whatever, if you don't care about making that person happy, you will get different information. And that is one of the things that I've sort of willingly allowed, that even though I'm really nervous sometimes about the message I have to deliver to somebody, because it's the opposite of what every other psychic they've seen has said.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, here we go. I'm sorry, but this person's not what you think they are, or this situation, you should be doing something else, or blah, 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 blah. Yeah. If you're not looking to be the hero, the good guy, the whatever, that you'll have different outcomes.
Yeah, you will. Yeah, I can vouch for that one for sure.
And also asking yourself, why do you want something? Because oftentimes we think we want something for a particular feeling, not for the thing itself. Like $10 million, maybe a person wants safety. Maybe they want financial freedom. And it isn't the thing, it is the feeling. And so when people get used to practicing the feeling, the thing shows up, or they start doing the things that are in alignment with that. That's what that people are missing, is they think one thing but feel the opposite. And your heart is 40 to 60 times stronger than your brain. So if you feel the opposite of what you actually want, you don't get it.
Yeah.
And so that's what they're saying, like, sit in a place of gratitude as if it's already there, because the universe thinks it has.
Yeah.
Because the body doesn't know the difference between a thought, a memory, and something in front of it. It just goes, okay.
Yeah. And I love this, because really the way I look at what we're talking about is almost understanding the mechanisms of how things work in this reality, right? And knowing that can be super powerful. And I'm excited. I feel like this session is coming to a close, but I do want to, I would love to have another session jumping into, maybe, these quantum leaps that we can do for ourselves, and really using this technology that you've spoken of, and my guides have worked with me on, really, of what that is, of really opening our worlds in a way that it's not the old paradigm of, work your ass off till you sweat till you're dead in order to get something. It's not that same paradigm. We're living in a different kind of a world. And I would love to do that. It feels like we've covered a lot of talking about shadows, of really, when you jump into this kind of quote unquote spiritual work, or jump into being a channel, what can happen, what can show up. And there always are pitfalls in whatever we're doing. We can all jump into maybe having an amazing career and use it as a deflector for really, looking within us. We can choose anything we want to, in that respect, if we desire to, but really becoming real with ourselves. That us becoming empowered isn't to avoid what we are, it's actually to discover and know what we really are more fully. And it's not a box that so often our ego or identity thinks it is. It's much bigger. It's much more than that. When we're able to do that, I feel life itself is, we feel into the oneness that is here so much more. We feel into that relation that you were talking about, the Lakota feeling of, these are all my relations. The land is my relation. The sky is my relation. You are my relation. Everything is my relation. And it's such a fulfilling, beautiful experience to be able to enter into that world, not in the same, kind of fulfillment that maybe someone else might think of, because I have $1 million, because I want to feel safe. That feeds a little hungry, ghost in you, rather than you really knowing the stability that can come with just being in your connected true self. And of course you can walk around and say, I don't quite get this, but hey, it'll get figured out. It'll get figured out, and we'll all do it together, and it's all okay. And so I think that's where I'm at. But I have a feeling I always tend to want to close with maybe a few thoughts from you, or I may channel, if that's okay with you. But what do you feel? Do you feel like there's kind of a final message coming through you? And also, how can people find you? Because this is important. People want to find Ashley.
Well, they can find me by going to my website. It's www.bonesoftheearth.org. That's bones plural with an S. And I guess for people, the way I'm looking at this is the law of attraction follows the law of resonance. It is the law of vibration. And that vibration means what you think, what you say, what you feel, what you do. It's not about worthiness. Does the universe love me? Does it like me? Am I a good person? It is, are you matching? Are you walking your talk? Are you feeling that version of you? I mean, it really is the law of vibration. And so don't worry so much about the attraction part. You have to vibrate first. And again, do your words, are they positive? And I don't mean toxic positive. I mean, like, are they really, truly positive? And do you have unwavering faith in the vision that you want to manifest? Because there's a certain level of power behind expectation. Just having the belief that something is possible is not enough. You have to expect it to happen to you. You have to trust that it's on its way, that everything is in alignment for you. And sometimes we don't feel that way when we first start. Sometimes we have to mentally rehearse that. And so don't ever give up until it's in your lap.
Mm-hmm.
It's always in process until it's in your lap. But don't miscarriage your thoughts. Do not abort your thoughts. Do not cheat on your thoughts with negative cases, worst case scenarios, with doubt and uncertainty. Because every time you have a thought and you put that is like a baby in your mind, or a seed that you're planting, and you feed it with your emotions. And if you abort it before it shows up in your ordinary reality, then that's because of something that you've said or believed or felt. So just have unwavering faith until that little baby thought is born.
Wow. I love that. I love that. My guides have been sharing some similar things with me about doubt and what it does. And gosh, I love that message. That's so great. be with the seed of the truth of what it is that you really, what is really truly you want your world to be. It is. I love how you use the word expectation, because in some spiritual practices, they try to get rid of expectation. And I just laugh. I laugh when I hear that, because there's no way to get rid of expectation. You just get to use it as a tool in a way, you know?
It's different than hope. I mean, certainty.
Yeah.
Like for me, like going through the dying process, I was certain I would find somebody, and I did not give up until I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what I'm talking about. It's not just expectation as in you have expectations of other people, you have hopes, you have wishes.
Yeah.
It is the absolute commitment.
Yeah.
The unwavering commitment to your vision, and to be willing to start or stop doing whatever it takes to make it happen. Because the more you are so convinced that you are also willing to participate in your vision,
yes,
the universe gives you opportunities.
yeah.
They'll either hand you exactly what you want in your lap or hand you an opportunity to get it.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I'm seeing that in my life right now. So I'm just beautiful words. Let me see. I'm going to take a little sip of my water here and see if my guys want to jump in at all. Never know what's coming, but I always have a feeling. All right, let's do this thing. Okay. We have been watching you and Ashley here, and your communication and the joy that is occurring between you as you both spark each other and you confirm the light and the truth of what you are with each other. We congratulate you, and we encourage you to do this with many, many people in your lives. In your life, Gwen, and in your life, Ashley, that as you find these comrades, that you will bolster and you will nourish each other and the truth that you have to share and what you supply the minds of the earth with. When we say you supply the minds of the earth with, we say that you are planting seeds of new thought, of new belief, of new systems into the world. And as someone hears what you speak, they open to that seed within themselves. And they then can choose whether this is in alignment with what they desire to create as their life or not. Of course, we see this movement and a wave of this opening into the new earth on earth at this time. And you two are doing what you have proclaimed you would do as one's coming here and dedication to your truth, to your life, to your light, and that we all together rise, that together, as we take each other's hands and look into each other's eyes honestly, and we proclaim what we are, that we find new ways to walk, we find new ways to step, and that we need not be afraid of looking into the dark. For looking into the dark, we simply find more of what may be reclaimed within us and within our lives. We reclaim our own power, our magnificence, and our dedication, that none are lost. None are lost. We are all here together. We all are all here together in love. We encourage you, Ashley, in your experience of now expanding into more of a public eye, that you also continue to offer ceremony to others and to groups. And you will expand in this arena and work with others so that this may not be too heavy or complicated for you, that you may simply step in with small amount of guidance and be there and serve and have a large impact on those around you, that your words will be heard, that your medicine may be heard. We also encourage you, Gwen, in expanding and finding those who you may do ceremony with, and continue in your expansion, even small steps, slowly bringing yourself into more and more clarity and alignment, will bring you to the point that you desire. And we honor you for every small choice of aligning and recentering yourself, knowing that you are bringing love, light, clarity, and truth You are inviting in true, honoring relationships into your life in honesty and love. And this, we leave a blessing with you both in your arrangements and the business agreements that you make, that you will be guided cleanly and clearly. What does not work simply may fall aside and greater things proposed to you or greater offerings open for you. We say this in hopes of you continuing on your great paths beyond the red road, but including it, encompassing it, and honoring what has gone before. You walk a new path, a golden path, a bright path that is lit, that is illuminated, the path, the way of all. And we bow to you in oneness. Aho. There we go. Can go to sleep to that.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
This was beautiful being able to be with you, Ashley, and I appreciate you taking the time and you being totally honest and opening your heart and the depth of your knowledge and understanding. And if anyone is interested, I encourage you to check in with Ashley and all that she has to offer. And I'll put the links down below for you to contact her. And in the ending, I always say is own your own stage and play on. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Welcome to Channeling. Till the next episode, own your stage and play on.
Hot Muffin Media.